But I guess I'm going to call the meeting to order because we have a pretty full agenda tonight. And who knows how full it actually is, because there may be surprises that we don't, that's the nature of a surprise, right?
Yes, let's not have any of those. Let's try to avoid them.
So, a couple of things, a little housekeeping before we get going. We are coming up on the end of our sprint through January and February. Tonight, all things being equal, is the last night we will be actually hearing departmental budget overviews. And next week, the intention is to do what we did more or less last year and go through all of the budgets. Thumbs up, thumbs down, do we approve, do we not, or do we reserve, for whatever reason. And I'm hoping that that will be a pretty expeditious process because we've heard pretty much what people have to say. The only budget that I'm aware of that may not be finalized, final, is the school budget, because they were still working on some details, and it wasn't clear when it was going to be locked and loaded, but maybe by next week. And if it is, and there's no real variance to what we've already heard, we can look at that one too. Hey Jeff, just got started. The other thing is, my intention is that in the March meeting, that's March 25th, that will be our opportunity to review the warrant articles that affect the FinCom, which I am promised, more or less. There are relatively few this year that the FinCom is likely to have to weigh in on or have a real point of contention about. Of course, again, surprise, surprise. I met briefly with Dan Hort today, and I have a current work in process version of the warrant, which I'll send around to everybody so that you can start to get familiar with the articles that affect us. It isn't a huge list, and I think we already know which the big items are. The school last week, for example, was one of them. So I don't think there'll be a lot of surprises, but that's the intention. And the rest of it will take under new business. I'd like to get going. Anybody have any initial thoughts, concerns before we jump in? Okay.
Just a
Yeah.
question. Does anybody recall the square footage for the high school? I know it was
Cost per square foot?
Cost per square.
Yeah.
It's on the chart somewhere, I think. If I can find it.
Well, while you're looking, I'm going to invite Jim Hood up. Jim, you're up first because the last shall be first or something. Jim was here several meetings ago and was in the process of finalizing the water enterprise budget. I'm guessing that's done now?
Yeah, so I'll apologize first for the handwritten department budget for '21. That was
legible.
reviewed last night by the water commissioners and approved this. It's very similar to what the town administrator's budget is on there, and it's very close to what we did last year as well. The one thing I would draw your attention to is the line for the Whitewater contract. There was a difference there of $2,500, and that has to do with the fact that I think the assumption with regard to the additional cost in the current year should only have been 3%, and that was, it takes it up a little bit more than 3%. So that's essentially the changes that are in that. And also,
I'm sorry, just quickly to that point, there's a B3 and a B5. It looks like B5 is the Whitewater contract, but there's a difference of $6,000 on B3 for contract services.
Contract services, the reason that number was as high as it was back in 2019 was that had to do with the changeover to Penachuk for the software and billing that took place that year. And they had to do an interface with our meter reading software in order to do the billing. So that's why that charge is in there at $12,939.
It's money well spent. Set it up for auto billing, which collects revenue faster and more efficiently.
Yeah. Now, I've left that at 12,000 for the coming year for contract services because we got word from Mueller, the company that provides the meters for the town, has decided not to no longer support the meters that we use. So this is just a contingency here in the event that we have to change or what the call, and we're working with Whitewater right now to attempt to get them to take responsibility for this because those meters have only been in for like less than 10 years. And if we have to change them all out, it's $280 some per meter that we would have, and we've got a fair number of them out there, so obviously that's a huge expense for us. So I don't have an answer yet as to how that's going to play out, but they are working on that.
One other obvious question is the phase 1 and 2 connection, which
Right.
is zeroed out.
Yeah, that needs to be zeroed out there on the department budget. We talked about it last night, even though we believe that those are coming in, we don't have absolute assurance of that 18,000. So we would take that out, so.
We should assume that's zero?
Just leave it at zero, right? I mean, as I think I mentioned when I was here last time, we had, in the current year, now we have had 14 new connections to the system, which is remarkable for us. We haven't had that in the past several years. So we're so hopeful that we're going to see more. We're getting requests even now for additional service throughout the town. So I'm hoping that we'll see more than 18,000 for that line. This would increase the general fund subsidy would not be 119, but it would be increased by 18,000.
Decrease.
The subsidy would be increased by
Does increase?
18,000.
So then it will be 165?
130.
38. 37, right. So this is good, that will get corrected, and
What's the fund balance? Do you have that figure?
good question. That's something we want to talk to Finance Committee as well as,
I just want to know the fund balance.
that we don't have a reserve fund at this point, which is something that we should
I know
have.
you have an enterprise fund.
But there's nothing, you see that in 2019, I think that 39,000, the net income for, in 2019, I think that what happened with that was that it probably just was used to pay down some of the general fund subsidy, because we don't see or have a balance in the enterprise fund. But that's something that the town should have. In fact, it's required by USDA.
But there's no plan to request some kind of override this year to fund it?
I mean, we've talked about this, but I think it's something we'd have to come back to you for.
So the difference in contract services between you and the TA is 6,000? 50%? Is that a philosophical thing, or?
That's the one I'm concerned that, depending on what happens with Mueller and the meters, we could see an increase of more than 6,000 in expenses for, because if we have to change companies there.
So that's an abundance of caution, one-time line item based on the possibility of having to change out the physical meters.
Right. We're hopeful that's not gonna happen, but I think we just need to be prepared.
And is that why there's a discrepancy with environmental partners?
Environmental Partners, we took that out because Environmental Partners is working now with us on the the next project I'm gonna talk to you about, and that is the planning around the affordable housing project on Lawrence Road. And so we have funding specifically for engineering services associated with the water system. That's through the $100,000 grant that we received. So if there are no other questions on the budget, I'd like to just quickly tell you about what Environmental Partners has provided us here. And this is, we'd asked them to update their estimates on the cost of replacing or installing a new water main from the Coles Neck well site to improve the hydraulic flow associated with the system. As I think you may have heard, we have an issue that we are unable to draw significant water, sufficient water, to maintain the level in the tank if something happens. If something happens here at the Boy Scout campsite, then we would have a problem because we can't get enough water through the pipes. It's not the wells. I mean, we could actually pump 100,000 gallons a day from the Coles Neck well site, but we just can't get it through the existing line. So we asked them to price two proposals. The first one is replacing the main from the well field down to Route 6, and then replacing it along Coles Neck Road, to where it connects with Pole Deck Road. The cost on that is, the projection on that is $3,726,000. And that is essentially just replacing the main along that route. There's no additional customers associated with that. You look at where it says service connections on that. There are 100 service connections out in that area now, and that's what it remains at 100. The second alternative is to bring it down from the Gristmill Way or Coles Neck well field and bring it down Route 6 to Briar Lane, and then in and have it connect at Main Street in Briar Lane. The cost on that is $3,842,000. So it's under $100,000 difference. And this is the option that the Water Commission is recommending that we pursue, because what it does is, if you look at the service connections on here, there are 88 new service connections that would become part of the system, which would allow us for additional revenues from potential customers on Briar Lane. And I believe also that there will be connections placed on the Hayes Road, Old Hayes Road, because that's where the water main currently comes down to Route 6. They were never installed out there, but because the water main passes in front of those properties, they are entitled to hook up if they choose to.
Did you ask Environmental Partners whether their costs include any increased costs for the steel?
For what?
Do their engineering costs, do their projected costs include the increase in raw materials?
Yes, these were all updated based on what they had done back in 2006, and then they redid these and
Using current
updated it.
numbers
So these
for
are current
materials.
numbers. Right.
Okay, good.
Now, the reason that this is, we're asking or suggesting this now, one of the reasons is because with the affordable housing project, there will be the opportunity to seek Mass Works funding,
Yep.
a grant for this. And as you may know, Truro was successful in getting $1.2 million through MassWorks. Brewster was 1.7 million. And I know that there are other, and having looked at their grantees for the current year, there are several that are in, that are much higher than that. So we're gonna request the full amount. We'll see whether or not how successful we are. However, there is a warrant article in place, or we're asking for that to be on the warrant for the funding of up to 3.875 million, which is the amount for the second option. Hopefully, we won't need.
Right, but they like to see
Much
that
of
we're willing
any
to
of that.
pony it up, so.
So the funding would only cover a Route 6 option, not the
Yeah,
replacement?
we would not be replacing Coles Neck. The polyethylene pipe that's out there is fine, and it works, it just won't.
It's a pressure system
The issue
situation.
would be the fire suppression, the hydrants still won't work.
No, really,
They don't work now, so.
no. That ain't good.
I just
But
don't
that's
understand.
been that case since 2003, I think, was when
Oh, yeah.
they had this issue, so.
So one of the obvious questions would be, let's say for the sake of argument that the town approves the article in the warrant, which I assume means you are authorizing the select board to raise the amount if the loans don't come through, or what time frame are we talking about in terms of when you would know? When does this have to happen too, or does it have to
The
happen?
MassWorks application has to be in by August. And I think they announced sometime in the following year. I don't know exactly when those grants were announced this past year, the 2019 ones. I think it was sometime in the fall, so it could be a year out.
So this is akin to the 7.5 million that was approved in theory for the dredging. It's not real money yet. It's money that will get spent if and when.
And I guess you probably know that this is an issue that we are certain that DEP will require us to upgrade this system in order to meet the hydraulic demand associated with any increase in the
You know that
number
as a
of
fact?
users on the system.
You know that as a fact?
Pardon?
You know that as a fact?
The regulations say that your secondary water source must be able to supply, the water at the same capacity as on your primary in the event of a failure of the primary.
And are there capacity issues?
We're right on the edge now. We're averaging, in the winter months, we averaged 33,000 gallons a day on the system. With the addition of the affordable housing on Lawrence Road, that will take it up to about 41,000. The capacity for, the hydraulic capacity for, associated with the Coles Neck well field and the pipe there is 40,000. So it's just under what the requirement would be there. We actually pump much more than that during the summer months. I think it's been as high as 80,000 gallons. Now, that's not a lot when you think about it.
But you could accommodate the additional on, Briar Lane.
Yes.
So, just to be clear, option 1 and option 2 would also alleviate the pressure situation?
Yes, that,
But you still have a problem with having enough pressure for the fire hydrant?
for hydrants out on Coles Neck.
Coles Neck, so that's not gonna solve that problem. So the advantage to Coles Neck would be that'd be the difference.
Yeah, but we don't get the potential for additional customers out there.
For funding.
Or, well, no, I think the funding, we could go to MassWorks for either option.
Either,
So at some point, that 2-inch pipe will need to be
4
replaced.
inch, it's 4 inch.
The 4 inches there will need to be replaced.
Not necessarily, it's polyethylene and it's, it's been fine. It's just that it should never have been installed if it was, for use for fire hydrants. Most homes that are connected to the system have either a 1-inch pipe or a 2-inch pipe that brings the water from the main to the house, so.
Let me put my ignorance on display once again. The map here shows the path of the upgrade running down Coles Neck Road to Main Street. Are we talking about the affordable housing project that's out by the school?
Yes.
Where,
The connection for the water system of Lawrence Road, the current one, is that the water comes in from either Boy Scout Camp wells or the Coles Neck wells, and down along Main Street and then on School Street. So it actually crosses underneath Route 6 at School Street and then up Lawrence Road to the school.
so that's this road here kind of.
And
Is
that
that
would remain
is
the
that
same.
so that's sufficiently, the pipes are sufficiently
Yeah,
large?
There's a 12-inch main.
Okay, that really was the,
Yeah.
great if we get the, more capacity this way, but what about where it's needed? Okay. Anyone? Bueller?
I'm ready to move on.
Okay. Well, thank you, Jim.
Thank you.
Great job.
Thank you. All right.
Oh, a quick word to everybody who's here tonight, Jim already knows this, we are gonna vote next week on departmental budgets. Our process last year was to review all the budgets first, and then do one blast of voting, so don't read anything into the fact that we're not ending each session with, what do you think? Because it's not gonna work that way. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mary and Gary.
Actually, we have Jim Bowie, the vice chair,
Okay.
and Jody Raymer.
You're well represented.
I don't think we have copies of the articles.
Yeah, she brought us.
There's-
Yeah.
I don't know.
No, those are minutes, those are minutes.
And that's this.
Do you have the pie chart? No?
We have 3 documents on the table from Mary.
I believe that, well, the chart.
A pie
I
chart.
think that's one.
Oh, I don't know if I have this one.
That is one.
This is one. Did I give you more than one, Jeff?
Does someone need a copy? I have another copy.
Jeff might have
And,
one. I might have handed Jeff.
And it looks like there should be a page that has articles on it.
Yeah.
Is that right?
There are 2 pages.
Yeah, I might have handed you the whole pile. That was, thanks. Sorry about that. That seemed awfully thick.
Okay,
Thank you.
no, got it.
Never mind.
Thank you.
We're good.
All right.
Absolutely.
So the first thing you have is this very colorful pie chart, just accumulation of all the CPC expenditures since the program was initiated in Wellfleet, and showing it by the different categories that you have. Any questions on this?
And it does assume that everything we passed this year.
Does.
What's OS?
What is, I'm sorry?
OS?
Opera,
Open space.
Open
Open
space.
space, sorry.
Open space actually this year, or actually last year, was the first time they actually had some money left over from the money that was the 10% that is committed to pay the debt on open space, so they have about $2,000 this year in expendable money.
okay.
And that will increase each year. I think the next, do you have this?
Mhm.
So this is a summary of, we had $940,000 worth of applications for CPC funds for this year, and we made awards of $717,000. And also to give this some perspective, is that we received $82,000 from the surplus that the state has. There was a lump sum of money that went into CPC, and our share of that was $82,000, which added to the reserves that we have in place now, we have just under $1 million worth of CPC funds in reserve, not including the 717,000. So in addition to the 717,000 that we seek approval for award this year. Any questions on that?
Just to reiterate, you have $1 million on top of the 1,717.
Yes.
So 717.
Seven, right, which this money has not yet been committed. but
Got it.
We don't know how much of it, but we anticipate all of it will be committed
So
at town meeting.
two of these projects have been withdrawn.
No, they were, one was with, I think actually both were withdrawn.
That's what it says
They
here.
come, right, they come before us and, you know, if we have significant questions, we suggest they come back the following year with more information.
So, but you did not fully fund some of these.
That is correct, and I'm happy to go through them, or shall I go through the,
Well, the ones that are not, that are fully funded, tell me why you chose not to fully fund the ones that you didn't.
the one,
So the
the third one is the
cemetery-
Cemetery Commission. We actually have an appeal to the FinCom as well as the appeal that we made to the Board of Selectmen, or Select Board, is that there was a lot of discussion about what should be a town function and what should be CPC funded.
Right.
We have in the past given grants to the Cemetery Commission for the upkeep of the headstones in that. But we really feel that the town has to take a more active role and have an actual budget line item for that purpose.
Okay.
And so we said, they also have a surplus left from the last time we gave them money, so we said, we'll give you a small amount this year, but let's see if we can't go to the town and seek funding from the town budget for what should be a town activity, so the town-owned cemeteries, as opposed to being CPC funded.
Who does the work, the upkeep?
It's an interesting question. So the answer is, in terms of the upkeep of the grounds,
No, I
It's
mean,
the
in terms of the
DPW.
money that they're requesting, who,
there is a specialist
okay.
that they employ who comes in and does it on a per tombstone basis,
Okay.
headstone basis. Last year, we encouraged them to get a local intern to get involved with that project to see if we can't spend some of the money here as well as find someone that could do it all year round. If I remember correctly, that person is from Connecticut?
Yes.
Yes, so that process, that
Comes
is
and
in
spends
process.
a day when he's able.
Exactly right, mostly in the summertime.
So if you're going to be requesting that the town take a greater responsibility for the funding of the cemetery,
Upkeep.
when?
When do
Are
we
you-
make that request?
Yeah.
We had our hearing of the CPC before the select board.
Is it one of these articles?
It's not,
No,
it's
Okay.
not.
but it is, I mean, the 10,000 is one of the articles.
Right.
But the
But
request,
the other part, the part
Yes.
that you would like the town to pick up,
so the answer is, I think it was about a month ago, we made our presentation to the select board of the CPC articles, and we made that request at that time.
okay, because you'd also mentioned that you were gonna request that of the FinCom, but
Well,
we haven't seen an actual request of any kind, so
No, I mean,
that's why I'm asking.
we're requesting your support for that.
I would say that we think that the cemetery commissioners are the ones who should make that application. We've encouraged them to do so. It would be sort of weird coming from CPC. I mean, that's, our philosophy is it should be the town, but it's not our responsibility.
So we should be looking forward to death and taxes, basically.
So the,
No, we just hope the cemetery commissioners will bring you a request for money for a public, town-owned cemetery that needs maintenance because a lot of things are falling apart.
okay,
If
so
and-
you
if
want
and
the
when.
cemetery commission to come to you to ask for grant money to do repair work, is that what you're saying?
No,
No,
they want, you want
they're
them to come to the
not.
Come
town
to town?
to fund
To
the,
you.
because they are
I don't know
town-owned,
about that.
they're town-owned
Yeah,
cemeteries.
but it's part of our history. It isn't CPC money for historical preservation and,
Well,
Yes.
we have funded in the past, and
Right.
we did again fund it this year. But it's also a
Well, I'm
town
just telling you
function
right
and
now, I'm
may.
not gonna support you in that.
Is this possibly another, and I'm just gonna throw out this out, is this another possible opportunity to partner with a local school or a local volunteer opportunity? I mean, is there an opportunity to shave some costs and get some people involved in volunteering for a day, or is it something that needs a specialist?
Again,
We're
we're not the,
Restoration
Yeah,
does
this is good.
require.
Oh, come on.
Definitely.
I just, was thinking, I mean, depending on what the, and I don't know the intricacies of the maintenance that needs to happen, but wouldn't it be nice to connect some kids to some towns and go through the schools and get a
I think-
volunteer
I
opportunity to
think
get
they
them
do
out
have
there?
that at the cemetery like they have it at the beaches.
Like you have a volunteer, you can go and volunteer and have some community,
You
yeah,
can adopt a headstone.
yeah, there you go.
Leave your pens there.
Well, I think probably pending how this resolves, there's not much we can do about it at this point.
Right.
right,
Well, it doesn't affect the budget, because this one
Correct.
here
This
is
is,
taken.
yeah.
If and when
When
they
it
come
starts
to us
affecting the
with
budget,
some
then I
sort of
think I
proposal,
would
we will
have
give it
that one.
a hearing at that time.
My question, was the original request for doing gravestone restorations, or was it, that was a part of, and also additional maintenance?
It was just for the gravestone.
I think this time it was the
Gravestone
gravestone.
So that's what
Last
the
time-
town has paid for in the past through the CPC, has been, they've come and you've kind of granted money. So it's,
We're the only source, as far as I know, Jeff, that has actually paid for that.
So the
And
town isn't
they-
paying for
they
any
paid-
of this.
I don't
Yeah.
believe so.
Town's not maintaining.
But again, we're not the cemetery commission.
right, so the point,
Yeah, so
what
they're just, yeah.
Right.
you're saying is that the cemetery commission should be going and requesting a budget line item for,
That was the consensus of our members in CPC.
Well, that's big of you.
I will say, without knowing much about this, that my sense is that expecting this kind of cemetery commission to voluntarily come up with a proposal that they come to us and the select board with might be wishful thinking. It would make more sense, at least to me, that the two entities work together to suss out maybe a sharing of responsibility and figure out exactly where the monies are gonna go, and then you have a real number, right, that you could say, well, this much goes for restoration, which might satisfy Stephen's
Just
issue
to
about the
remind you,
historical
though, the
side.
Cemetery commission does not have a budget.
I understand, but the thought here is that they're gonna have a budget if they get some sort of approval, but what is it for?
So.
Is it for everything, including historical
DPW
services, or not?
then.
We don't know,
I
right?
would say,
So,
I assume the DPW
Yeah.
mows the grounds.
They do, should I?
but this is all about,
This
That's
is,
what I
this
said.
is about the actual preservation. and
really,
the work.
I mean, I don't care either way, I think they.
are they receptive to your proposal?
Whatever.
Yeah, it's nice, I mean,
Oh,
it's
okay,
the
well,
CPC
see how it comes.
Yeah.
It's not,
All right.
it's not really a budget, it isn't really a
But I-
budget item, it's
Yeah,
just.
there is no
There is
budget,
nothing
this
in
is-
the- in this year's budget with regard to
This is-
cemeteries.
Seems like a strange way to organize it.
Yeah, let's,
Yeah.
yeah.
Moving on.
So,
Okay.
Okay,
Yeah.
do you wanna go through each one of the
I just want to talk about
allocations,
the,
one by one?
If you like, I can
Or-
certainly do that. I
There's
can-
only
people
two-
have
there's only
specific-
two more, so.
I was mostly interested in the ones they didn't fully fund,
Why?
of which there are two more.
We're not discussing those. They're not funded, right?
No, they're
No,
partially
no,
funded.
Not,
Partially
they're
funded.
partially funded. I want,
The
and I
decision
want,
was
and I
made
want to
to-
understand why.
Okay.
All right,
So,
well, let's start with that then. We did the cemetery
Right.
one.
You want to talk
The
about
historical-
the museum?
yeah, museum, yeah.
That's a significant variance right there, 150,000, so.
Right. So, we have, with this grant, we will have provided about $1.2 million in CPC funding for the museum. And I think there was significant discussion at the CPC this year that should we be continuing to allocate that significant amount of money to this project? What, in essence, what's the right amount to give in support of this? When we have a lot of discussion about what's really impactful for the town, what do townspeople want, and to use this money as wisely as we can, and possibly to keep some in reserve for big projects that we think may be coming down the line. So that's why we went from 500,000, I'll be honest and say, I was advocating for a lower amount, and the 350 is the compromise amount. So,
Is it fair to say that since it's phase 2 of a restoration project, that there was a project budget and a timeline?
absolutely.
And is this 500,000 intended to be the last amount that was ever going to be spent on phase 2? And is there a phase 3?
Again, you should speak to them, but my understanding is that the answer is no. Phase 3 will follow phase 2. Phase 3 has another significant price tag associated with it, and we will deal with that when and if it comes to us in terms of how much we will fund.
The phases are for like, they keep coming back to the well, which is fine, because the money's well spent, so.
No, when they bought the building, it was, I think, a 3-phase.
Yeah,
I seem to recall 3
exactly.
phases as well.
And I think, they have other fundraising activities that they're involved with and grants that they're involved with.
And that would be the other shoe dropping, because if they don't get the full amount they've requested,
Exactly.
does phase 2 just die?
No,
Or do they
because
find
they're
150,000 somewhere
They're
else?
fundraising and seeking grants elsewhere as
A
well.
couple
They-
bake sales.
They've had some significant individual
Big
contributions
sales. Yeah.
this year.
Okay.
And it'll be interesting because it's clearly very improved from what existed
Yeah,
before.
very
So.
good. Wow.
Still has a smell.
You mean the haunted house that used to exist 10 years ago? Yeah, it's better than that.
Might I mention too that the amount of phase 2 is $1 million.
And they came
asked
requesting
us
half.
for half of that. The other half to be raised by fundraising.
There are precedents for other projects like this that you guys have done around town.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's taken several years
The
to.
Pond Hill School.
Right.
Yeah. I thought would never end.
But it seems it's good programs now and so.
Have you been in it? It's
No.
nice. It's worth
Been
going
in
to
there.
take a look at it.
It is.
Field
It's
trip.
right.
I mean, it's not finished, but
It's never gonna be finished.
it's great though. I mean,
Okay.
so wait a minute. This Friends of Mayo Beach House.
And that's
what's
been
going on
withdrawn.
there?
It's been withdrawn.
Do you want to
That's why it's in gray.
speak to the Cape Housing Institute?
I'd be happy to. They asked us, this is an ongoing program. I believe many people here.
I've taken it.
Yes, have participated in it. If you haven't, it's a great thing. It's put on by the CDP in Eastham, and it's usually 6 or 8 sessions, and it talks about all of the legislation and regulation associated with housing and how we
It's
build.
Affordable Housing 101.
Yeah.
There's a lot more to it, but it's a
Yeah.
good overview.
Yeah, it's very good.
Why are we not funding the full amount they requested?
They requested 2 years. We're reluctant to forward fund, and so we gave them the
see.
funding for 1
I see.
year, which is the same amount they asked for last year.
Okay.
So this is inclusive of all projects.
That's correct.
If you were to do one of these this current year's application, does it kind of fit? How different is it?
Well, you can see, Jeff, roughly,
So-
that historical would have a larger,
No, this
Uh,
includes.
right,
Yeah,
no, no,
yeah.
I'm
He's
just
He's ask-
asking.
Yeah, he's asking if there was a pie chart for just this
Just this year.
fiscal
You
year.
can see that the numbers are
How it
roughly,
would work.
Oh.
roughly,
Get into that, yeah.
yeah.
I thought the Mayo Beach thing was, they were gonna bulldoze it. So what's up with the town's
It
situation?
keeps coming back like a bad.
There is a group that is getting together to seek to save it and to renovate it.
Good,
And that's-
good luck to them.
And that was this request, and we felt it was premature
I
at this time.
I
Good judgment.
really hope that they don't come back looking for
I
money.
can't say whether.
Yeah.
Well, I have a recommendation for the CPC. Maybe you could do like a support or fund a local bonfire for the
Yes,
community.
I'll donate the match.
At the same time, we can tie in some training for the
Train
fire
firefighters,
department
yes.
and have a building burned.
You
And that
know,
would be historical.
November 5th. Right,
And you can sell marshmallows.
I would not eat anything I roasted over that building.
Even October 31st is our deadline for grant
grant
applications, so
applications,
we
okay.
welcome that. Yeah. Anyone in the community can come
Oh,
forward.
that's right, anybody can.
Yes.
That, yeah,
So,
I do not believe they will get a warm
well, what if they
reception
came
from
back
us
next
if they-
year? Philosophically,
I'm here for that.
how do you stand on,
I can't prejudge what application they'll make.
That's right.
why do they withdraw it? Because,
There
Because
was
they know they're not gonna
sufficient,
get
there was
what they want.
insufficient information to make a determination as to whether the money would be well spent or not.
fair enough.
You're very kind.
That was a very diplomatic answer.
Yes.
Okay.
Nice.
Enough said.
Does anybody have anything else for Gary?
No,
Well, that was
thank
great.
you.
Thank you very much for your
Thank you,
time.
Gary.
You-
This was a relatively easy one. You
I
know,
was gonna say.
some years they're so contentious.
Giving away money is,
Well, yeah, and it's not my money, so.
Yeah, it's all about money, but
Can
it's
I
already
actually
been
tell you, it's
appropriated.
all of our money.
Yeah, but
Yes,
it's
I know-
al-
I know
But it's
that.
already been appropriated, so it's easier.
But my share is such a
Things
tiny
that
part.
transferred.
Real estate.
Suzanne,
3%.
welcome Suzanne Thomas
Thank you, ma'am.
for the beach budget review. That sounds like one of those old Frankie Avalon and Nick movies.
Beach
doesn't it?
budget review?
Beach budget review.
I don't think Frankie Avalon would have pulled that off very well.
Thank you, Dan.
Yes.
Thank
Could you
guys
sit
for all
here,
your
please?
service.
I'm here, I'm just waiting for the traffic to.
Oh, okay.
Wow, that was, I
For-
feel much better.
For the
about
benefit of
where
the
we are.
viewing audience and Mia, we encourage presenters to sit in the empty chair.
Okay,
Not quite Passover.
that's not till April.
Okay. Let's see. I have a ridiculous amount of paper, and I'm hoping I don't need any of it, so.
Let me see, the beach is on
Well, we got
page
through the
15,
Know what's in the book?
page 15 of tab Culture and Recreation.
Okay, but we have, okay, so recreation is on page
Recreation is-
6 and 7, it starts on 6 and 7, and then goes from there.
There you go.
Yeah, I saw it.
Where do you wanna start?
Suzanne, do you want to open with anything?
I do, I wanna start with seasonal salaries and wages.
Okay.
A couple of things have happened between fiscal 20 and 21, and the minimum wage went up, and I hire parking lot attendants at the minimum wage, so I can't give them a 50-cent raise and pay the older people, so that went up. We also, for the first time, staffed a Newcomb Hollow in September
I
with
saw that.
lifeguards, and that's and I made that, had an agreement with Mr. Hort that if I could get lifeguards out there, I'd be increasing my budget to cover them in following years.
Quick question, I'm sorry, because I'm looking at yours and I'm looking at mine and the numbers look different. It says 305, yours looks like it says 330, is that
And
right?
it says 300.
Oh, 300, never mind. Hello.
Maybe Dan gave me $5,000 extra, I'm not sure. But the general theory is the same, and then I also have gotten some requests from my head lifeguards to see if we want to start staffing Memorial Day instead of the middle of June. Because it's a big couple of weekends there, so that would be a handful of extra days, not,
The question is how many of those people are actually in the water? It's pretty cold on Memorial Day.
well, it's a safety issue as well,
Yeah.
just having them on the beach. That's up for discussion, it's not included in this amount, but this amount will cover the September,
How many days a week during September did you have it? Just the weekends?
all but one.
Oh, really?
And the day it was, I think it was
All but one, so-
58 and was rainy, so we didn't have
20
lifeguards.
29 of the 30
Well,
days?
no, because Labor Day was the 4th, so through the 4th we had
Okay.
regular staff. And then from the 5th through the 30th, we had Newcomb Hollow.
Okay. I thought it might just, I only got out there one day, but I thought maybe it was just weekends.
And we did have abbreviated hours, we did 10 to 4.
Yep.
To, because it's chilly in the morning, it's
Sure.
chilly in the afternoon,
Sure.
so.
Gets
yeah.
dark
So
earlier.
a
Right.
question, and I don't know if there's an answer to this question. To Janet's point, it's pretty chilly in Memorial Day for somebody not wearing a wetsuit, say, to go in.
Mhm.
But there are surfers who will go in all winter, so I wouldn't be surprised if we'd see more surfers in the shoulder season than we might have
The surf
10,
is better.
15 years ago.
The surf is better in the shoulder season too.
Has the change in the overall sense of going in the water, because the sharks are here earlier and they're here later, is that
And
affecting,
there's, yeah,
is that affecting the thinking that we should have lifeguards on the beach just in case?
yeah, that was the thinking for September. We got many requests, because I will tell you, the Chamber of Commerce is really successful in then building the shoulder season that comes after Labor Day. Because the weather's more conducive, the water temperature is
Still warm.
warmer,
Yeah.
the restaurants are open, I mean, it's really becoming a really popular a time of year, and a lot of beach use. And we did get a lot of thanks from local people, because I took their kids on weekends and they were, when they were out of school, they were happy to have guards out there at Newcomb's.
So would it be fair to say that we can read some of this increase as changing patterns of tourism and
Yes,
shark awareness?
yes, very fair.
When do the first sharks kind of show up? Right?
Depends on the shark. The bigger ones come earlier because they can tolerate the cooler water temperatures.
So we're getting them in May or?
April, end of April, beginning of May, the first ones start pinging.
The thought is that it's actually the smaller ones that are more dangerous. The bigger ones know that we're not tasty.
It says
Smaller
juveniles.
ones, the juveniles don't
They
know
don't know the
that
difference
yet.
Yeah, well-
between a human and a seal.
Here's the difference. Juvenile sharks are 10 feet and under. I'm pretty scared of a 10-foot shark.
Yeah, no, I'm not in any way suggesting that we shouldn't be afraid of them.
Oh,
That
okay.
we should be less afraid of them because they're smaller. I'm saying that they don't have the experience. They come a little bit later. The ones that are here when the water's colder are less likely to bite us because they know we're not tasty. The ones that arrive when the water starts to get comfortable for humans, they're the ones we have to worry about.
And Greg Scomo's got a grant for doing,
Yep, he's spent 5 years assessing the population on the backside. And now he's switching his activities to the bay, and it's a dual thing. It's population and behaviors. And he and his fellow researchers from the Division of Marine Fisheries, from Woods Hole, different agencies, are also trying to figure out in terms of water temperature and daylight and all that stuff, which conditions lead to more human-shark interaction. And that will be part of his study.
so you're gonna scare people on both sides of town.
Well, I don't think you should jump off your boat in the middle of the bay anymore.
I'll tell you something. About 15 years ago, we went fishing out with Jack's mate, caught all our fish in the first hour, and we were diving off the boat in Truro. We went out with him 2 years ago, and his mate had to go into the water, and he was in and out as fast as he could possibly
Absolutely.
be because things have changed.
Absolutely, they have. And I think people's behaviors like that have changed. People are aware. People use the water differently when they're at the ocean. As many people are in the water, but we don't have any more heroes like weekend warriors deciding they're going to swim out to the lobster pots and back. That doesn't happen anymore because they're aware.
People are taking Scomo's advice to stay in water where if you're swimming, your fingers can brush the sand.
There's a shark sighting in December, FYI.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
at what point
But
does
that's
the town's responsible for,
well, they're
Watching people swim.
unlikely to be human-shark interactions in December, except possibly with surfers, and they're kind of
They're on their own.
anyway.
Surfers are a different category. They don't really need watching over. And they're probably the most experienced and wise to the ways of the water of anybody out there.
Right.
so what, this past year, did you see as far as the amount of people that bought beach stickers, the traffic up, down, saying,
The overall numbers of stickers were the same. How long they stayed in Wellfleet was different. Like we sold a lot more
Shorter term.
3-day stickers than we did 1-week stickers. But between last year and this year, the total number of stickers sold between those two categories was stable. So they're coming to Wellfleet, but their vacationing patterns have changed along there. The 1 week rentals are not as much of a rule as they used to be.
And it may be that those people are choosing to only spend, to only get the beach passes for part of the week. If they are staying a week, and they're doing other things out
I
of the
heard you
water.
could get into LeCounts at noontime on August day, because it was half full.
Yeah, because there was no bar.
No, LeCounts, not.
No, there was
Coons.
not bar, drink your alcohol bar, it was sand bar.
Sandbar.
Sandbar.
There's no break at LeCounts, nobody wanted
No,
to be
these are,
there.
these are
Come on, party
people to
boy,
swim.
get rid of
They don't swim, well, they come, yeah, nobody was there,
Sandbar.
but we
Was
saw,
that just that particular beach?
it was just that beach.
Oh,
It was
okay.
just that big, and they waited
You
in
could
line
say
for
that.
up to an
It
hour
did
at
be all
Newcomb
different.
Hollow. 5 years ago, everybody had to go to LeCounts, and Newcomb Hollow had spaces at 1 o'clock in the afternoon. Now it's flip-flopped the other way.
So-
And way back in the last century, when I first started this, nobody went to LeCounts. It was just, didn't happen.
Well, the good news is so far we haven't had devastating storms.
Oh, please, it's only February, Jeff.
I think last year we got all the storms in
Suzanne,
March.
Yes, Fred.
take A3 out for a moment. As I haven't pulled the calculator out, but as far as I can tell, except for uniforms, and I'm guessing that the 6,000 in FY 2020 is a projected, not an actual, and that you're anticipating it'll be closer to 10?
Mm-hmm,
That's why you budgeted for 10?
exactly.
Okay, so I don't see a huge increase in the budget anywhere except on line A3. Am I missing something?
No, there's nothing else. The only other thing is, that's it. I mean,
I see
that,
credit card fees went up a bit, uniforms is what it is.
Mhm. Credit card fees went up specifically because we installed the kiosks at Whitecrest, and those are credit cards only.
So the credit card fees went up due to volume.
Volume of sales. We did,
Yeah, but you're not paying
100
the parking attendant to be
Right,
there.
no,
so
I
it's-
wasn't arguing, I was
Oh, I was
just
just-
clarifying.
we did almost 200,000 at Whitecrest last summer, 198,240.
With
Wow.
very little effort.
That's nice.
Once we got our connectivity settled, so
And how many people are going to the
Food
beach,
for
and how many are
thought.
going to the beach Comer?
98% are going to the Comer.
Okay, there it is.
We are an auxiliary parking lot for the Beachcomber. However,
We're getting money.
there's no, even though Whitecrest is the surfer's beach, there's no place to surf there. There were no waves. We had waves every 3 days last summer. So, in the absence of people wanting to surf there, if we can just make a little money parking, I think it's fine.
So the other question here, in our budget, there is no revenue listed. Do you guys not list the revenue as part of the beach budget? It comes in via the,
I don't do that. That comes from the accounting office.
That's that part of the software that the auditors always say the town should use a little bit more.
Well, I do have.
well, where does the revenue get accounted for, I guess is what I'm asking.
All the beach revenue goes into the beach fund, so if you look at the beach fund balance, that's the revenue for the season. It'll give you this year's income in the beach fund, which is receipts reserved.
If anybody sees the beach fund balance anywhere, please let me know, because I don't see it.
It's not in this book.
It's not in this
No,
book.
we don't
Unless
we don't
he's-
have assets.
I can,
Yeah, we don't budget.
Actually, no, there is.
Municipal accounting doesn't work that way.
last year we made just a little over $1 million in the beach program. It was like, I have the combined revenue from the beach office, but that includes shellfish, which is about probably $30,000, so it would be like $1,040,000 at the beach. And that includes the Whitecrest kiosk, because my software includes Whitecrest in the daily reports. So I know, I can go live and see how many are selling and whether they're having a problem.
Page 9 in the first section, in the introduction section. Page 9 has revenues.
Thank you.
And the beach fund is on page 9, middle of the page.
Not my page 9.
I've got,
I got
Yeah.
I got that goes down
Beginning
floors.
of the-
Oh, okay.
Right in the middle of the,
Section, yeah.
right in the middle of the page.
Yeah, gotta be in the right section.
Yeah, I get.
Okay.
Front of the book.
So there
September,
it
you
is.
don't check beach stickers,
We do not.
Thank you.
but you have life pass.
Mm-hmm.
I thought I'd seen it in here somewhere.
Yeah, I thought I had too, but you know.
Because mostly
I don't
it's
know.
local.
Do that for the
But it's
next
not-
20.
it's not
And they
integrated
all have
into the
stickers anyway.
individual
There are very few non-sticker
Should
cars
be.
when you go out there
budgets
and look.
because
And a lot of them
it's such a
have
different-
visitor stickers, so they have at one point in the summer
It
paid
would
for
be
a
useful
sticker.
at least to have a note that says see page 9 individual
A
section
Gunwood
for
check sticker is
each
still like
revenue.
Wasn't that
15.
hard to find?
That's in Nicholson with one of the beach stickers.
Gunquit is
Crazy.
hard-nosed. I've been there. They have excellent beach bathrooms, though.
So,
Used to be a really
anything
nice
in the
chocolate
warrant
shop
this year
right by the beach.
that, I recall we looked at some capital issues back in December.
I have, where's my capital? I have a beach request. I'm sure you remember this, the repeater question?
Oh, yeah.
Right, and we don't have to review it again.
No.
It's-
No, it's.
I just
it's,
wanted to see if, I guess I was asking if there's anything new that we haven't already
There'll be
talked
a
about.
request for transfer from the beach fund for fiscal '20 in that Article 2. I have some,
That's to cover the.
because I
other
have to make up for the deficit in my salaries and wages at the end of fiscal '20.
Right.
And I do have another expense unanticipated to upgrade the kiosks, so who knew that the greater population who came to Whitecrest couldn't read an instruction about how to put their credit card in the machine? So we spent a lot of time coaching people to do how to do their credit cards, so I want to upgrade the credit card. I wanted a chip reader, but that's way too expensive. So I'm going to upgrade to swipe, credit card swipes, and they'll have at least a 50% chance of getting it right the first time. So,
Can I ask you, or we ask you to possibly just send us a somewhat more itemized breakdown of the jump from 243 to 305 on line A3?
well, sure, if you'll look and see, the fiscal 19 actual was 284, so it's only a $16,000 increase over what I actually spent.
So you're expecting FY 2020, the actual to be closer to the 305?
And she does actually say that, and she does talk about in her,
It's all in there.
on the
Narrative.
previous, yeah, thank you. The narrative,
Long day.
I know.
A3. right
I've been
there.
at this since early morning.
Okay, yeah.
All right, so, and
that's-
any other questions that come to mind? I just want to announce that the beach stickers are in my office. I'm excited. They're beautiful this year.
Oh, good.
Yay.
How are those new chairs working out?
The
Towers.
lifeguard chairs, well, aside from the fact that people were a little like, oh my God, at the beginning, the only deficit for those chairs is the guards have to be more careful getting off them. They used to just hop down.
I was gonna say, does your
Now they need
insurance
to
bill go up?
climb
or-
down.
Yes, thank you.
Yes.
Broken legs.
Yeah, I was a little worried about actually lightning strikes. But,
Well,
'cause
if
they're tall.
there's lightning, we pull people off the beach and out of the water, so.
Yeah, and hopefully off the chairs.
Oh, yes, that was, yes.
Any
But no-
vandalism or anything?
nobody's burned one in a fire.
Not for lack of trying though, probably.
That's a good point.
Yeah, that
Um,
was one of the justifications.
And the old ones did sit on the top of the dune at each beach.
Yes, I did see
And
that,
provided auxiliary
Spotting.
spotting for weekends when it was
Because
heavily
it is actually
populated.
easier to see things just under the surface of the water from higher up.
Absolutely.
One last question, unless somebody else has another question. I haven't gone down to the parking lots recently, so I haven't seen if there's, and we still have a good solid month of storm season. Have we lost?
Not very much.
I think so.
There's been enough lost.
So we can
It's
anticipate
too
that
early
your
to-
revenue will not be affected by
Just jinxed it.
It's
that.
too early,
I
Reg.
know.
It's
know.
too early.
We can't even talk about this till May.
Just think of all those April storms we had, Fred. You know, we can't presume anything in
I understand
February.
that, I'm
That's
not,
what took down the widow, was an April storm.
Uh-huh. Remember
Northeaster.
the April Fool's Day
And you're
storm?
generating revenue from the buses to take people to,
No, the parking for the people.
Okay, so
Parking there.
that is something, that won't generate revenue for the beach program, but I'm in discussion with the elementary school committee and the owners and operators of Cape Destination and Cape Cab Funk Bus. And they have each, they approached the town to say that they would, if we could find parking for them, that they would pay a lump sum to the town each summer for being able to park their buses there on Saturdays and Sundays. it's not finalized yet, but I've been working with town council. We have, it's not a lease because you have to go out for procurement. It's an
rental.
agreement
Right.
between the two. And once the school committee sees the final iteration, I've been there 4 times. I'm going next month. I'm hoping I get it approved then. And then I'll go to the 2 entities and the school will get the $10,000, $5,000 from each company, and probably use it for something that they can't put in their budget, like field trips, or, I know the PTA pays for a lot of things like that, but something that is not affordable just because of budget constraints.
Okay.
So these repeaters, what telephone is that connected to? Is that a closed system?
That is nothing to do with telephones, that's for our
It's the
portable radio
communications,
system.
Okay.
It's the same reason that the fire and police department have to buy new repeaters, everything's going digital.
And actually, our radios are far better than police and fire on the beach.
Right, because they have to be.
And Michael Hurley last summer ordered 8 of our little radios to put one in each cruiser and have one available to any officer that had to respond to a beach call. And that worked out.
There's so little reception down there.
I don't know why Verizon or somebody can't put a tower next to Whitecrest that we own 30 acres.
'Cause
They
nobody,
can, it's within the seashore, it's a discussion with the Department of the Interior.
plus people get all upset about towers. It's more than
You can
just
make
a
it look like a
discussion.
tree.
People,
It
a
does.
very tall tree.
Have you seen the tree ones? They don't look like trees.
That's the state tree of New Jersey, right?
No, make it look like one of those new lifeguard towers.
Yeah,
and
can you
put
put it up
put
on
a
top?
dummy up on top, you know?
Can you put it up on top
Nobody
of
will
the
look
lifeguard
twice.
tower?
We could just
All
have
about
concerts
efficiency.
up there, make it like, put the lights up there and have a
Nice
concert.
too.
All about efficiency.
So, any other questions about the beaches?
Thank you so much.
And none of my other departments, you don't have any questions about those budgets?
Well,
Becky's here for beaches, I
Right.
have,
for recreation.
Recreation.
for recreation, I have council on aging.
Talk to us about council on aging.
There's nothing remarkable.
Where is it anyway?
It's 541.
There it is. What's that? There it is.
The only increase is the Friends are no longer paying for the fuel for the town vehicles. And we have 3 of them. One's an aging RAV4, which when it turns toes up will not be replaced. But we're using it while it's still safe on the road for staff, for home visits for Linda. And we have the 7-passenger bus, which is very popular. And then we have a Dodge Caravan on long-term zero-cost lease from the CCRTA that's wheelchair equipped.
Nice.
But there's gas and maintenance involved, and
Sure.
that's why there's an addition of that line.
All right.
So that's my biggest change.
Questions, anyone?
All right,
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Becky's up.
There are cookies, by the way, for anyone who wants.
Oh.
They're there for
Too easy to
everyone.
reach.
Oh, as a matter of fact, we have cookies. I brought you guys treats and I forgot to give them to you.
Oh my goodness.
Well, better now than before. because
Here, they're nice to be warm, they've been in my pocket.
Oh boy.
Would have looked more like a bribe before.
That's true. Yeah, a reward, not a bribe, right?
Are they milk chocolate or dark
Thanks to
chocolate?
the leftover.
The red ones are milk, the pink ones are dark.
Good to know.
Thank you.
Ones are milk, pink ones are dark.
Have some chocolate.
Feel free to keep passing them around.
Yeah, right?
Well, thank you, Suzanne.
So which one's the dark?
The pink ones are dark.
Pink
Pink
ones.
ones are dark.
So, I think the recreation budget's 630, 630.
Recreation
Yep.
budget is staff orientated. Is orientated a word?
Um,
I believe it is.
well, I was just gonna read.
Oriented is a word.
People say oriented.
I know they do, but I'm not
always
sure it's a word.
Suspicious of it.
I am too.
Alright, never mind.
I just had a little bit to add to my budget statement that you guys already have on there. Since December of 2019, the department has established the new residence, our new office at the Wellfleet Elementary School. Our office, being a former classroom, is big enough to set up ping pong, foosball, and air hockey tables, an art and painting corner, and karaoke. Thus creating a fun, welcoming atmosphere which children of all ages are beginning to enjoy. In addition, the department has successfully partnered with the What Theater on an upcoming community showcase and started a Sunday Fun Day activity session for middle school students. Upcoming classes for adults and children, including cooking, capoeira, pottery, jewelry making, DJ instruction, and golf classes at Jaquesset Yacht Country Club, are planned for the spring, as well as expanded drop-in use of the gymnasium and other areas of the school. The department is asking for your support in working together with the Nauset schools surrounding town, Outer Cape facilities, the 349 Prevention Committee, to provide community center programming with the objective of providing increased activity opportunities to meet the needs of the community without the need to build a separate expensive community center. So the concept that I explained last year in the budget, which we budgeted some money for to see if we could implement it. We weren't 100% sure what room in the school we were going to be getting, so I wasn't sure exactly what programs we were going to be initiating, but the concept of underutilized buildings being having a use beyond their daytime use. Original intent, thank you. And also just the What Theater is thrilled to have us there. They don't really have winter programming. Their board wants to open up to the community, so having access to this beautiful theater with their letting the rec kids and community members use the props, sets, costumes. They're providing us with support staff, and it's been really well received with that. So last year we kind of got the tools in place, and this year we're expanding on that concept of community center without walls and utilizing the Wellfleet Elementary School with the support of the principal of the school, the superintendent, and the staff there has been very supportive. So we're thrilled to be at the school. It's much more efficient for us to be closer to the kids, closer to the teachers, closer to the parents, I'd rather, and just it streamlines the program in the winter months. In the summer months, of course, we love being at Bakersfield.
Is this the program that was in the COA, the Kids in the Kitchen thing? Or?
Yes. Well, that's part of our Calling All Instructors flyer, which was meant to solicit some volunteer instructors for the program that I just described. And that flyer's only been out a few weeks, and we already have 6 or 7 folks that want to teach classes. So one of them is a cooking class. We just put ideas for people on that flyer, but so far we have the cooking, the capoeira, the jewelry making, and pottery. Judith Stiles doing the big pottery thing with the kids. So there's a kiln at the school that doesn't get used, and we're just utilizing these wonderful facilities that we have that are underutilized. 2 years ago, a group came to me and they wanted to pursue the idea of building a community center, and my suggestion to them was let's see what programs we actually have interest in doing before we go forward with the expensive capital project. And also just living here and looking around and seeing that all these buildings that are state of the art, that are underutilized, that we could take advantage of, and the concept seems to be taking off. We just started this December. We moved into the school. We finally got up and running there with computers and phones, and all set up, moving our whole operation, and just a couple months in, we're already getting a lot of positive, enthusiastic support for this concept. I don't know if we are going to revisit the community center idea. I think that if this works, it might be a less involved alternative to meeting the needs of the community.
It certainly makes no sense to build a building and fill it full of equipment that we've already got sitting around in town not being used. So
I think it's a great idea.
I think it is, and I think you're to be commended for implementing this, for
Oh, thank you.
putting this together.
Before we lived in Wellfleet, we were in the Hudson Valley. Our kids grew up in a school system that was not bad, but they one year killed all of the arts, music, and other programs. And so a bunch of parents got together and created something called the enrichment program, which involved people basically teaching little 4-week courselets on stuff they knew. So somebody did a Shakespeare course, somebody did an art course or whatever. There's a huge diaspora in this area of older people who know a lot, who you might be able to pull in to
Absolutely.
to just do
and
quick,
they're
you
coming
know.
forward. Just with this one flyer, we're also going to do some more outreach, more detailed outreach to these folks. We're in the process of doing that. But there's such a wealth of talent
But
just
you mentioned,
in this
you mentioned
town.
what, and one of the courses we did was on Romeo and Juliet. We showed them some of the best ones, Zeffirelli's Romeo and Juliet, and then we had them read the lines. So the kids actually played out Mercutio and Romeo and Juliet.
It's wonderful.
There-
Yeah.
There's ways to be real creative.
Absolutely, and we've got, well, I don't know if any of you have gone to see the Shakespeare that we do in the summer at Mayo Beach, but the couple that does that, they're coming down to help us with the showcase. So they're gonna do some Shakespeare with our kids, and we've
That's
got a
great.
lot of interest from the school to partner. And what I like about it is sort of the intergenerational concept where, you know, different age groups working together, and we've got quite a few. At our first organizational meeting for this, quite a few folks came forward that have experience in the theater that are willing to work with the kids.
I think
So-
we'd be doing the town a real service by getting older and younger people to interact with each other, because I hear it's a standard complaint that older people don't know any younger people.
Right.
They're here, you know, but they're not working together to like rethink the town.
There are a number of towns, a number of places that have started to implement, like, high school age kids to mentor, older residents in use of their tech devices.
Yeah.
It's a good
I
way to
think
go.
that would be a fabulous program.
Well, see, that's what, just even with the CPC funds is the suggestion, and it's kind of been my theme this year, is to get the volunteers in, get the kids in to volunteer, to be connected to the community, and also to make that connection. There's a lot
Yeah,
of,
and it really
there's-
gets the kids one-on-one with the,
and it's it problem solves, and to make use of the buildings we already have. I mean, we're paying, there's a new roof coming up for the library soon, that's that on our budget. The library is a great space, you have a great space here, the school is a great space. There's a lot of buildings that the town owns and operates that, and you're not going to the same space with each program
Right.
too. So I think that really is a great idea to get kids involved in the communities, and yeah.
that sort of program is one of those rare opportunities where the kids get to feel smart.
Yeah, do the smartphone class where the kids get to teach.
Smartphone, iPads, yeah, but give the seniors the
win.
one-on-one.
It's a win-win,
It's a
yeah.
huge win.
It's a
Give
win-win
the
with
seniors
everybody. It's
the
a win-win for
one-on-one
everybody. They're invested
attention
in the
they
town,
need.
they're invested in the community, take the volunteer opportunities. I mean, they're, I don't know how much the school, my kids are so far removed from it, but I know that my kids were always involved in, like, let's go volunteer for that, or that's a volunteer opportunity. It makes a big
We
connection.
already have quite a few high school students that are working with the younger kids, coaching and mentoring, and it's been a very powerful, great connection to make. The high school kids came up through the program getting mentored by our staff and other kids that were in high school at that time, and they're extremely dedicated to the point of, making sure they check with me if it's snowing, are they still having practice. I mean, the it's a very powerful connection for that, and they grew up in our program and now coming back, and they also want to help us with this concept of supervising the use of the school as a community center on the weekends. Where this is Emma Odell, by the way. She's interning with the rec department and wants to learn about being an administrative part of the department. She's been working as our summer director for the past, well, last year she was our director, but the past, 10 or 11 as a counselor.
I want
So,
to applaud the way, the approach that you've taken, and it's so consistent with, getting the reuse. I can't say enough great things about how you're trying to move forward with this. I think it's just excellent.
thank you. I'm just so, like, after 22 years, it never gets old for me to see something that actually works, and when you see so much excitement about this partnership with the Watt Theater and the school
Yeah, that's
being
so
so
exciting,
welcoming,
yeah.
and us being able to utilize a classroom as with ping pong and air hockey, and on the weekend, because I grew up in Wellfleet, we moved here when I was 9, and I remember the programs on the weekends with Betsy Williams and the video thing, and I mean, those kind of things were so important to my growing up years
Teenage,
that we wanted.
senior, pairs, doubles.
So, from a practical perspective, line 83, the temporary costs have gone up about 30% from 19 to 21. Could you just speak to what?
A3,
A3?
but the salaries.
Yeah,
So it's 2
Okay.
points, yeah. it's
So,
increase.
could you just
Right.
kind of speak to that? line
Yes,
item?
absolutely. So part of that increase is similar to what Suzanne just told you about the beach budget, that the state mandated minimum wage went up to $12.75 an hour. So,
All the salaries had to go up a little bit.
yeah. And so that was something that we needed to figure into the budget. The two additional budget requests are both salary related. One was $3,000 for a pickleball monitor, and one was $2,800 for special needs counselor. The pickleball program has gone off the charts with the adult round robins. We have 3 of them. We could have 5 of them, but we have to allocate the gym to other groups as well. And the program, because it was new, Suzanne and I had decided to run it through the Friends of Recreation and not try to figure out how to run it through the budget. But now that it's established, like 3 or 4 years of, it's definitely here to stay. We have painted lines on the floor of the gym. We have 200 people on an email list. We have 25 people showing up at the round robins on the weekend. So it's definitely not just an ancillary program anymore. It's part of the rec department.
Just as a sidebar, 10 people who play pickleball with Becky in Wellfleet went to the Nationals. They were in Palm Springs.
Yeah.
Yeah,
They
10.
started, they
We
learned
bought them
from
t-shirts
us,
and
they
sent them
learned
off,
from
said,
us, and
"Go
then
play
they,
pickleball."
it's become, it's
Oyster
just
ball.
We're all tennis players.
biggest-
guys,
the most popular adult program we've ever run, which is wonderful. I mean, Outer Cape Health tells me that people say, when they ask them what's your fitness,
Right.
regimen,
They
they
play
say
pickleball.
pickleball and Wellfleet pickleball. So I'm pretty proud of that.
So did they pay any
We
fees for that?
we do charge for the round robin $5 a person, and last year we brought in $8,000 in revenue.
At $5 a person?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We could get parimutuel
So-
betting going.
So I'm asking for $3,000, which is only, which still gives $5,000 of profit to the town, to pay somebody to run it, because we need to do crowd control there with the substituting, especially in the winter. We only have 3
So-
courts.
So the
So-
pickleball players get really rowdy.
Well, they get upset
East-
when they don't get their
They
playing
get
time.
assertive.
So the
And then-
East Ham is involved too? Because some people go play pickleball in
Yes,
East Ham too?
every town on the Cape now has some form of pickleball availability. East Ham's gym is not as big as ours, so their indoor courts are not regulation size, but they're still getting people. And when Willie's gym is temporarily not in service, a lot more people, which is a good way to put it, I guess.
A
Kindly
more and
put
more
it.
frequent occurrence.
Anyway,
Sounds like you have an opportunity for
so-
all Cape pickleball.
the Outer Cape pickleball, each town does a little bit. I'd say of the towns, Provincetown, Truro, Wellfleet, and Eastham, we do the most probably because we have the most availability of the gym. The school is a little more welcoming in Wellfleet than some of the other towns. We can open it during vacation week. We can
Gym
open
has
it
its
on
own
weekends.
entrance, so
The-
it
yeah,
doesn't-
when they built the gym, the Wellfleet had the foresight to have it. The rest of the school can be locked down.
Yeah.
It can just be the bathrooms and the gym. So the Mary Beth feels comfortable with how, and she actually embraces the community because it brings a demographic into the school that wouldn't necessarily be there. So they
Right.
see
It
what's
helps them
going
take
on there.
ownership of it, even
And
if
they
don't have
actually
kids.
support the school budget. Their kids grew up somewhere else, but
Yep.
they're
No,
grateful
smart.
to.
It's really
So
smart.
I think that she is happy to have the support of those folks because they're it's a win-win. They support the school budget, they support the rec budget, they utilize the school in a way. They pay for it obviously, but they don't mind paying for the kids that live here, but they also get to utilize the gym, which is a gorgeous gym. So that's one of the expenses to answer your question. The other one is in regards to a special needs counselor, which we're requesting because the number of special needs children that want to attend the recreation program has grown over the years, and it's, I believe, going to continue to grow. And these kids are able to successfully participate in the program, but it really necessitates a one-on-one or a counselor that understands specifically the spectrum autism dynamic. And we had a brother-sister in the program last year that would have been home in front of the TV the whole time if it hadn't been for our counselors that were so creative in incorporating them. The only problem is it's hard to pull a counselor from a group and dedicate them to that
So you're looking to
supervision.
bring in a dedicated counselor.
So to bring in a dedicated counselor, I talked to Mary Beth about what she pays her ed assistants who do this work. And it's a range, but the mid-range is about $20 an hour. We put in about 150 hours, which is the average for a counselor in the 9 to 12 program, and we're in the process of advertising for that position. When I talked to Dan Hort about this, he asked me if we wanted to take this on, and I would like to try to take it on. Of course, if it gets too exorbitant, and if it gets too prohibitive, we'll have to say no to some folks. But the high functioning, spectrum children have been very successful in our program, and I would like to offer them. The school doesn't really offer some of the kids. Well, the school offers summer programming for the most severely impaired children, but the ones kind of that are in the middle, they don't really have anything in the summer for them. So the
That's a
school
great thing.
approached me about it, and that was what that was the result of that.
Yeah.
Was adding that amount. So that's where the increase is in that line. What did you say, A3?
That's the one that jumps out. Is there anything else that you want us to look at that you'd like to draw our attention to, either to your benefit or not?
The only other new, the contract services line, the operating budget was pretty much within the parameters of the 2.5% until I found out that Mary Beth didn't have in her budget to do the maintenance on the gymnasium floor. If the wooden floor isn't buffed and polyurethaned every year, it gets really slippery. I don't know if anybody has experience with that, but these wooden floors are much superior to play on than the plastic ones, which are much easier to maintain.
I made it a point
So
to
we
stay out of
wanna,
gyms as
we've
much
been
as
nursing
possible.
our wooden floor along, and she's diligently has maintained it every year with the buffing and the polyurethane, which costs about $2,800.
That has to
But
be
she
done
hasn't been
anyway.
able to, I'm sorry?
That has to be done.
It has to be done.
regardless of, like,
And the ironically, the school only uses it for phys ed classes 3 days a week, whereas the rec department uses it 7 days a week for all ages. And if we're inviting more pickleballers, especially seniors, anybody, I just worry about slipping on that floor, and I think this is short money to maintain that. So
Yeah.
adding that to this, Dan gave me permission after the budget was handed in to add that amount in. Brought us above where we initially wanted to be with that, but I just wanted to bring that to your attention, and that's why we had that there.
Oh, I think that's fair.
So,
So gasoline, do you have a van now?
Yeah,
yeah, we have the van now.
remember that got voted on at last year's town meeting.
Yeah, that was the donated van.
Now you have a new van, right?
No,
Not yet.
not yet.
That's next year.
Yeah. That's in the capital budget, right?
No, not for this year. We
Okay.
decided to postpone it.
Push it
Um,
to 2022,
Okay.
until Becky has like a year's worth of data
Mhm.
for use before we
Good.
can justify the purchase of a new vehicle.
Okay, good.
Yeah, I think it's Shellfish that has the new truck, the third
Yeah.
truck. Yeah. Anybody? Anyone?
Small equipment?
Okay, so the small equipment that we've been working with the recycling committee to get rid of all plastic bottles, reusable plastic bottles, as well as the ones on the Poland Spring dispenser. And so we have a water filler that's attached to the rec building. The only problem is it doesn't have a chiller and it doesn't have a bubbler. So I didn't want to completely get rid of the cups and the Poland Spring, because down at the rec facility, it's important for people to be hydrated, and it's important for us to be able to get them water when they need it. If the $2,000 would pay for a chiller for the existing unit, as well as a bubbler attachment, so that when we're not there, and some people forget to bring the reusable bottles, and they sit there and try to drink out of the thing. We're not always there with cups. So, in order for us to totally go without any plastic or any of the reusable or not reusable,
Single use.
I would like this expense I would like to be able to put in a chiller and a bubbler, so to know that when we're not there, people can get hydrated, because it is kind of far from any other source of water.
I think a bubbler is a great idea. I don't know how.
We
I don't-
definitely need
I don't know
that.
how urgently we need a chiller, but definitely a bubbler.
It's important to chill.
Well, we have a chiller and a bubbler here that the DPW installed, and in addition to the little meter that tells you how many single-use water bottles you haven't used, there's a filter in the water, so the quality of the water that comes out of there is excellent. It's better than something you buy in a bottle. So I can highly recommend it, not only for kids, but anybody who's using Bakersfield for a water source.
And the issue with the chiller is that the water comes from, we have a hydrant, a town water hydrant that's right on Kendrick Ave, and so they ran a line. And so it is good quality water, and in the shoulder seasons when they first hook it up, because it goes under the ground, it's not warm, it's, not cold, but it's cool enough to be able to enjoy. But in the summer, when it gets really hot, it's warm, it's lukewarm.
It's lukewarm.
And people
Okay.
don't want to drink it, so they always, even the bicycle officers come in and fill up on our Poland Spring unit that we have inside. So that it's the sort of peak times that that people really need to be hydrated. And if they can put the chiller inside the building, it won't get messed with. We can probably have an indoor-outdoor unit so that staff indoors can utilize it as well as the public outdoors can utilize it.
And if that works out, you can get rid of the Poland Springs
Yes.
unit.
Yep.
Yeah, I didn't know what the situation was with the water getting from A to B, so that's good to know, thank you.
Yeah, that's the deal with the chiller. It's, under the ground, it's,
It's not very far.
some people
Underground.
don't mind it.
Yes.
It really isn't bad until it gets hot out and then it gets warm.
When you really
and
want
people
water.
don't wanna
Yeah, when
drink
you
it.
really want it to be
Right,
cold.
Emma?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's gross. Yeah.
Yeah,
She'll
it's
tell
not
it like
gross,
it is.
just feels
Yeah,
gross,
yeah.
To
The
drink
water's
warm
not gross,
water.
but it's just like warm water.
Yeah, got
You
it.
let it run, but still, it's warm.
Yep.
So last summer our first summer with the chiller?
Mhm.
Yes, with the water filler. So, anyway, that was the DPW recommended that we put this in the budget for installing the chiller and the bubbler. So that's where that number came from.
Great. Any other questions?
Nope.
I'm good.
Becky, thank you.
All right, thank you very much.
Sounds like you're doing some really innovative, interesting, fun things.
Well,
hopefully.
it's exciting. Anybody wants to be involved, let me know.
Seems
You
like
know,
the
know
first
somebody.
really major.
Thank you for saying
Major
that.
department expansion in a long time, so.
Right, well,
I'm glad to see
having
it.
a facility that to call our own in the off-season is a huge boon.
Good.
Yep,
Thank you all.
All right,
Thank you.
all right, thank you.
Go ahead, Meg.
Okay, thanks, Susan.
I gotta pick up my stuff.
Okay.
So
It's nice to meet you.
with that, as far as I know, we have come to the end of our departmental reviews. The intention, as I said earlier, is to meet next week to make a final statement about them one way or the other.
Yeah,
I'm sorry?
yeah, no, sorry, forgotten that we have a meeting next week.
Yes, we do. But it's the last one in February, there's one in March, and then it's town meeting. I don't have the minutes in front of me, are they, is that a
They're
copy of them
also
over there?
here, yeah.
So I'm gonna jump ahead just for a second here and invite, if. Oh, so they are so long. I'm gonna trust that somebody's read these and,
Who has read them?
Wait, that's not the question.
who would like to, suggest that we accept the minutes from
So moved.
January 2nd?
Second.
All those in favor of accepting the minutes, and thank you to Rebecca,
Yes.
because
This
she's,
is yeoman work here.
Rebecca is having to work from basically transcripts out of our mouths here. I assume you're just watching the videos
It's a
and,
lot easier than listening to my own tape, to be totally honest.
well, maybe this is a
this
new
one-
process then, but
This would certainly take the place of it. I mean, you have it the next day.
Definitely helpful. I mean, it took me a little while because I was laid out flat for a while, so I still have to do last week's meeting for you, and then I'll be caught up.
you had to work like Michelangelo on your back, like painting the Sistine Chapel. That's gotta be tough,
Yeah.
so tough.
Well, thank you for
Yeah, really.
doing that.
Thank you for your
Recovery.
service.
That's above and beyond. Thank you.
I have nothing new on strategic planning at this point, except that my intention, and I'm happy to have anybody help out, is to get a copy of a new report done based on all the input we've gotten from these meetings. So really, it's gonna be focusing on the extraordinary stuff that's coming, not so much on a new truck or whatever.
Let me know how I can help.
Yep. Anybody have a liaison report? Okay. There's no correspondence this week. There are no transfers. Two small bits of other business. We had a brief and animated conversation last week about the letter that was sent to the FinCom and read into as correspondence, and there was, I think, if not a consensus, I think there was a sense that it would be a good thing to have a representative from the schools, Tom Conrad, for example, come in possibly at the March meeting and talk about, give the alt perspective. There was some thinking that maybe there's more to the story than just killing off
That's what I was gonna try
school
to point
choice.
out to people, is because they don't hire additional teachers to teach these students who come from other districts. So even though it looks like we're losing money, We're not. It's additional revenue to the district
Exactly.
because they're filling spaces in classrooms that have empty spaces. They're not hiring extra teachers to teach these people.
That's correct.
Yeah.
Also, the students who want to do school choice, it's their responsibility to get to a bus stop. They don't. It doesn't cost the district any additional transportation
right.
fees either. So
And there are also questions of quality, the programming that's involved when you have a larger school. It has been suggested, and I don't know that this is necessarily anybody's motive, for example, in producing that letter to us, that there is another agenda in that people would like to see the high school renovation project go south, and that if you had fewer students, you could make a case for that. In any case, I think it would be a good thing to invite a representative of the school to come into our March meeting, and if you all agree, we'll do that.
I don't quite understand what we're
Because we're being
doing on
asked to
it.
weigh in on a financial question, and we just want to
But
be
I don't
armed
think
if
it's
it,
any of
if it,
our.
Well, we're gonna be asked to weigh in on the school renovation.
Right.
And I think the
That,
question,
definitely.
the school, I think there's
that's
some,
where it's likely to
It's
come
not
up.
the question is there linkage? And if there is, it would be useful for us to know that.
See, now
and-
that I see. but
Yeah,
the
we're
fact that-
arming ourselves with
that a
information
former
if
Right.
this
you know,
gets tied in and.
Yeah, no,
I
it's-
think it's harming. This specific topic is just completely separate from. I don't see why we would be discussing it.
I think the concern would be if, the concern would be that you know how sometimes people can be moved by an argument at town meeting,
Right.
that if someone comes in and says, we can save money by killing the school choice program, and they make a persuasive case, that then there's a cascading effect
Right,
into
but
other
what
areas.
are they going to apply that to the budget? What are they
Well,
going to
if-
come up
if-
and
if
say?
they're building
And
a
say,
If they're building a school that has a target of 945 students or whatever, some number
I
like
think it's
that,
905.
905, and if in fact, if it were only the 4 towns in the district, if that would be 700, then is the school that they're building the appropriate school?
And because we
That's where I
have
think
gotten
it
the
comes
grant
in.
money
Yeah, but
based
the
on that
school
905,
choice
if
thing,
they
to me,
kill.
it's
the
just,
school
it's
choice.
not a money loser for the.
Not
Right.
now,
Not
but
now.
it's a question to be asked in the future. If we had that didn't have that
Didn't have
program.
that program, would it save us money?
And that's.
Or would
would
it
it increase
impact
your-
even the efficacy of building another high school? It's just, the idea would be to have a counterpoint to a letter that has now been introduced in as correspondence, so that you get a whole perspective, and then
And do what with this?
it will inform our vote, I assume, on the, if this comes up at town meeting, as I think it will, somebody will
What do you
get
think's
up.
gonna come up? The school
I think-
choice thing?
Yes, I
Do
believe
you
some,
think somebody's gonna get up and
I-
say?
The guys from Wellfleet who wrote that letter.
So, let him get up and talk. Who
I-
cares? I don't care.
Well, the
I'm more
important
concerned
thing is
about the
that
expense of the high school. That's the real.
Well, that's,
Well,
that's what I
but-
think he's
Yeah,
leading
but-
to.
if there's a linkage in
Yeah.
people's minds between the two, such that Wellfleet then doesn't vote for the high school
Right.
renovation because they think we are spending too much money through school choice or whatever, if it influences that vote, it has an impact on the finance committee. That, because in theory, we are taking the whole picture into account. People at town meeting may
Right,
not have that
We're
opportunity.
gonna make a recommendation on our own, which is fine, but I don't see why you wanna start catering to this guy with this letter. Focus
We're not,
on.
we're trying.
No, I'm talking about bringing somebody in from the school,
To
just-
do what?
to just give a
The
brief,
counterpoint.
a brief counterpoint
Because they-
message that will then be on the record that people can peruse.
Okay.
there's,
Did anybody do anything with that letter that came to us?
Not that I'm aware of.
Right?
But they
We're
are,
the only ones
but there
that-
are folks showing up at all the finance committee and select board meetings making
There are.
that case. It happened, there's an
Only
article,
one.
no,
I saw
Brewster,
something like that as a letter to the editor, I think.
Oh,
somewhere
okay.
at the,
there is
There's,
there is a movement.
there's
of
something
sort.
going on that's interesting in Yarmouth, and that is that the elementary school in Yarmouth is going to require a new roof. And that project is going to be large enough to tip them over into having to do a major renovation if they're not very, very careful in how they approach it. The concern is that if we don't do this renovation project on the school, any major system failure at the school is going to trigger the need to do a renovation that we won't have planned, that will
So
not have
where are
been
you
planned
going
for.
with
I'm
this?
just saying that,
So what?
well,
We're talking about Wellfleet's
right,
budget.
if by some,
I don't care about.
if by some chance the school project gets killed through the loss
Right.
of the school choice program, we are probably
So
looking
what
at
are
a
you
scenario like
looking,
that.
you wanna make sure that we support the school?
No, this is in the interest of getting as much information in
Right.
front of the public
Go right ahead.
as we can. It won't be, since we're going to have most of the meeting in March taken up in looking at the warrant and going through the articles that affect the FinCom, it will be a relatively brief presentation. And that's all I'm suggesting,
That's
and
fine.
is it okay? All right, then
I think
we'll
it's
we'll
a very
reach
good
out.
idea.
That's it. That's all I got. I'm happy to entertain motion
So
to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor? Okay. See you next week.
Good job.